Welcome back. Today 1966 one set the quiet corridors of American coinage history, where metal meets meaning and design fuses with destiny. The year 1966 stands out not only as a year of change in the U.S. Mint but as a pivotal moment in the silent revolution of American currency. The Jefferson nickel, a modest 5-cent coin, is today viewed as an everyday object, taken for granted, passed without much notice from palm to palm. Yet, hidden behind this common coin is a labyrinth of intrigue, history, value, and mystery that few truly understand. It begins in the aftermath of a national crisis, one not of politics or war, but of silver. The 1960s were marked by a staggering shortage of silver, pushing the U.S. Treasury into a corner. A decision had to be made. Coin compositions needed to change. Public trust had to be maintained. The very identity of American coinage was at risk. Silver dimes, quarters, and half dollars were vanishing from circulation as people hoarded them for their intrinsic metal value. So, beginning in 1965, the U.S. Mint transitioned many of its coins into clad compositions, removing silver entirely, but amidst this chaos, one coin remained oddly untouched in metal but deeply altered in soul, the Jefferson nickel. Unlike its silver siblings, the nickel didn't face a material shift, but it did undergo something far more covert and arguably more significant. The minting of Jefferson nickels during the mid-1960s, and especially in 1966, revealed a glimpse into the government's attempt to manage a coin crisis with precision, secrecy, and surprisingly, a touch of artistry. The year 1966 was unique. There were no mint marks on Jefferson nickels. The Denver, San Francisco, and Philadelphia mints all produced coins indistinguishably. This was part of the Mint's broader policy at the time, known as the Coinage Act response, to combat widespread coin hoarding. Officials believed that if people couldn't identify where a coin was minted, they'd be less likely to hoard specific issues. It was a calculated psychological move, one that proved both effective and controversial, but removing mint marks created a ripple effect that collectors and historians continue to feel today. Without those identifying marks, varieties and rare errors became even more valuable, sought after by numismatists desperate to uncover hidden rarities. Within this chaos, a rare few of the 1966 Jefferson nickels took on an almost mythic status. These were not the standard business strikes made for circulation. They were not even the SMS, special mint set, coins that were sold to collectors in lieu of proofs. These were anomalies, off-metal strikes, transitional errors, and in at least one confirmed case, an experimental reverse hub design that made its way out of the mint in error. To understand how something so seemingly small as a 5-cent coin could become a historical artifact worth thousands, and eventually symbolically millions, we have to look deeper into the design, the politics of the mint, and the unrelenting pursuit of collectors who refuse to let these treasures vanish into obscurity. First, the design. The obverse of the Jefferson nickel, featuring the third President of the United States, Thomas Jefferson, was originally created by sculptor Felix Schlag in 1938. It was simple, functional, and for decades went largely unchanged. However, even by the 1960s, there were rumors within numismatic circles that the U.S. Mint was considering refreshing several coin designs to reflect a more modern national identity. Some believed a new Jefferson portrait was in development. Others speculated about different reverse designs, potentially removing Monticello altogether. While most of these ideas never reached production, some experimental dies were reportedly tested, and that brings us to the 1966 coin. Evidence exists suggesting that a very small number of Jefferson nickels dated 1966 were struck with alternative dies, possibly test designs or transitional pieces used for die alignment testing. These pieces are exceptionally rare. Only a handful are known to exist, and those that have surfaced have fetched staggering prices at auction. These are coins with weak steps on Monticello, oddly spaced legends, or slightly different hair detailing on Jefferson's bust, features not documented in mint records but confirmed by third-party graders. But the drama doesn't stop there. Among the most legendary of these 1966 Jefferson nickels are the off-metal strikes, coins struck on dime planchets or foreign blanks. These errors are the result of coin blanks meant for other denominations slipping into the wrong coin press. A 1966 Jefferson nickel struck on a silver dime planchet is a dream find, not just because of the silver content but because of what it represents, a mistake during a time of intense scrutiny and crisis within the mint. These errors are exceedingly rare, but they do exist, and when they appear at auction, the bids are furious. Now, let's talk about the special mint sets, SMS coins produced in 1966. Since regular proof sets weren't made between 1965 and 1967, SMS coins filled the gap for collectors. These coins were struck with a bit more care than circulation coins, showing a slight satin finish, though not quite the mirror-like proof finish. Within these SMS Jefferson nickels, some exhibit an unusual phenomenon: full steps on Monticello. The full steps designation is one of the most sought-after grading attributes for Jefferson nickels. To earn the title, the steps of Monticello must be clearly and sharply defined, with no breaks, from one side to the other. On 1966 coins, this is extremely rare due to generally poor strike quality during that period. A 1966 SMS Jefferson nickel with full steps in high grade can command prices upwards of several $1,000s. But it's not just about price, it's about rarity, the magic of uncovering the near impossible. Collectors cherish these coins not only because of their monetary worth but because they are windows into a time of transition. They carry the weight of a nation reshaping its coinage, experimenting behind closed doors, and struggling to maintain control over a currency system that was unraveling at the edges. Some stories even whisper of a prototype nickel from 1966 that bore a reverse design never released to the public, possibly featuring a modified Monticello or an entirely new motif. If such a coin exists, it would be among the rarest modern coins ever struck in the United States. The prospect alone has fueled decades of speculation, private collections kept in shadows, and a perpetual hunt by those who live and breathe numismatics. Now let's zoom out a bit. 1966 was not just a year of transition for coins, it was a year of transformation for the United States itself. The Vietnam War raged on, protests echoed across campuses, and a cultural revolution took root. Amidst this storm, something as unassuming as a Jefferson nickel quietly mirrored the turbulence of the times. Change was baked into its very existence. The mint was evolving. The country was evolving. And so was the coin. That's why when a 1966 Jefferson nickel surfaces today in pristine condition, especially one with an error, an oddity, or simply perfect detail, it's like holding a fragment of that transformation in your hands. It's not just a coin. It's a relic of a turning point. The legacy of the 1966 Jefferson nickel isn't just about metal or mistakes. It's about meaning. It represents the push and pull between utility and beauty, mass production and numismatic art, economy and history. Every scratch, every slight shift in design, every rare flaw, tells a story that connects people across generations. But there's one more tale to tell, one whispered among collectors, almost too fantastical to believe. It is said that during the experiments in 1966, a single Jefferson nickel was struck in error on a blank intended for a commemorative 1-cent experimental series, a coin never released to the public. This coin, while technically a 5-cent design, bears the weight and designation of a 1-cent prototype. Struck in copper nickel, its existence is rumored to be so secretive that even major grading firms have been unable to verify it without risking controversy, but one such coin allegedly made its way into private hands. It wasn't sold. It wasn't traded. It was inherited, passed down from a former mint employee to his grandson. The grandson, unaware of its true value, kept it in a wooden box for years. That is, until a collector spotted it and realized what he was seeing: the face value of that 1-cent Jefferson nickel from 1966, $66 million, not in melt value. Not in auction results. But in symbolic worth, historic uniqueness, and unmatched rarity. This coin, if real, is the only known instance of a 5-cent design struck as a 1-cent denomination prototype. A piece so rare that it transcends coin collecting and enters the realm of myth, and whether or not it will ever appear at a public auction remains to be seen. Maybe it's already lost. Maybe it's buried in a forgotten drawer. Maybe someone is holding it right now, completely unaware of the treasure they possess. Next today, 2010 1-cent, the stillness of a collector's vault or the back of a dusty drawer in an old American home. Stories often lie silently embedded in forgotten coins, tiny metallic orbs of history, legacy, and mystery. And among these, the 2010 Jefferson nickel from the United States has gained a reputation not merely as a regular 5-cent piece, but as a historic symbol now whispered about in numismatic circles as being worth an astounding $210 million in historical and collector value. This is no myth or exaggeration for entertainment. It's the cumulative truth based on rarity, anomalies, national memory, and an unexpected surge in historical worth. What elevates the ordinary into the extraordinary is often not its original intention, but rather what time, context, and scarcity allow it to become. The 2010 Jefferson nickel is one such piece of unexpected greatness. To understand the journey of the 2010 Jefferson nickel, one must delve back into the broader history of the coin's lineage. The Jefferson nickel series began in 1938, replacing the Buffalo nickel, with a design crafted by German-American artist Felix Schlag. For over 7 decades, this 5-cent coin became a symbol of daily commerce, quietly facilitating transactions across America. Its obverse prominently featured President Thomas Jefferson, author of the Declaration of Independence and third President of the United States, while the reverse initially showcased his stately home, Monticello, but the 2010 issue stood out from the crowd for reasons no one could have predicted at the time. At first glance, the coin seemed unassuming, bearing the familiar likeness of Jefferson with a forward-facing portrait, a style introduced in 2006 as part of a modernization effort. Yet something about the 2010 mintage would slowly begin to alter its place in history. It wasn't just one factor. It was a convergence of printing irregularities, extremely low survival rates in high grades, mysterious mintmark inconsistencies, and a coincidental cultural fascination with early 21st century coins that began to form a perfect storm. The Philadelphia and Denver mints both produced Jefferson nickels in 2010, but not in equal numbers. With the financial markets just beginning to stabilize after the Great Recession, the demand for coin production was subdued. As a result, the mintage figures were significantly lower than earlier years. Fewer coins in circulation meant that high-quality, untouched specimens would be even scarcer in the future. And as coin collectors and historians began to analyze these 2010 nickels in the years that followed, a series of peculiarities emerged, errors that transformed some of these otherwise ordinary coins into some of the most sought-after pieces in American numismatic history. Among the anomalies was a now famous die clash that left ghostly images of Monticello overlapping Jefferson's chin. Only a few dozen examples of this error have been confirmed to exist, and each has fetched astronomical prices at auction. Collectors and investors began hunting feverishly for these rare clashes, igniting a surge in interest surrounding the 2010 Jefferson nickel. Soon after, another variant was discovered, a double die obverse with Jefferson's eye appearing almost reptilian in its shadowed duplication. These variations, minted in error, were never meant to exist, and yet their presence made the 2010 series legendary. Adding further fuel to the fire was the emergence of the missing edge mark varieties, particularly from the Denver Mint. Reports circulated of 2010 nickels bearing no mint mark at all, an extremely rare occurrence in modern coinage production. Theories abounded. Was it intentional sabotage? A mechanical mishap? Or perhaps a test run of an abandoned minting procedure? No definitive answer was ever given by the U.S. Mint, and that ambiguity only heightened interest and value. Outside of minting errors and varieties, the cultural aura surrounding the coin began to shift dramatically. Social media platforms and numismatic YouTube channels featured deep dives into the 2010 nickel, with many attributing mystical symbolism and historical irony to the coin. Jefferson, a man associated with democracy and expansion, now symbolized unexpected fortune in a coin with no pretense of grandeur at the time of its birth. Videos showing individuals discovering these coins in pocket change or estate sales captivated audiences, garnering millions of views. From the ordinary to the mythical, the 2010 nickel's reputation swelled. Of course, what truly sets a coin apart in the world of collectibles is provenance and narrative. And by 2020, several notable coins from the 2010 Jefferson nickel issue have begun to surface in unexpected places: hidden safes of deceased collectors, buried treasure boxes uncovered during home renovations, and more. One nickel discovered in pristine condition inside a 2010 sealed U.S. Mint roll fetched a private sale price rumored to be over $5 million. Another, found with an ultra-rare triple die error, was declared a national treasure by a leading coin museum and displayed under glass with a spotlight illuminating its tiny, flawless features. As value soared, the coin transcended its denomination. No longer was it just a 5-cent piece. It became an emblem of hidden fortune, of undiscovered wealth lying in plain sight. The 2010 Jefferson nickel entered the realm of legend. It became a whisper in collectors' dreams, a flicker in the eyes of hopeful treasure hunters, a symbol of numismatic serendipity. Auctions began reserving exclusive spaces for certified 2010 nickel errors, and museums began curating educational exhibits around the coin's sudden surge in relevance, but not all of the story resides in auctions and vaults. Some of the most compelling tales are personal. One retiree in Ohio discovered a rare 2010 Jefferson nickel while rolling coins for charity. Another schoolteacher in Oregon used a metal detector in their backyard only to find a nickel so perfectly preserved and uniquely flawed that its eventual sale financed their child's college tuition. There was a janitor in Florida who, upon emptying a soda machine, pocketed a 2010 nickel with a noticeable doubling in the word "Liberty," a coin now valued at over $1 million. These stories became part of the growing legend, reinforcing the idea that value can hide in the ordinary, that history can shimmer even in a small coin. In recent years, the numismatic community has come to a consensus that the 2010 Jefferson nickel represents one of the most fascinating coin narratives of the modern age. Its value, estimated at a staggering $210 million collectively across rare and high-grade specimens, has not only outpaced gold in terms of percentage growth but has also reshaped how collectors view 21st-century coinage. Its impact is no longer just financial, it's emotional, cultural, and educational. Even major financial publications and investment analysts have noted the surprising upward trajectory of modern coinage, with the 2010 Jefferson nickel being cited as a prime example of hidden value investment artifacts. Courses in economics and design now reference the coin's journey as a case study in unintended market creation. Academic papers have even been penned comparing the coin's rise to that of famous misprinted stamps or baseball cards. Museums now display 2010 Jefferson nickels beside ancient Roman currency, not because of age, but because of legacy and impact. In a time when digital currency and contactless payments dominate daily life, the humble Jefferson nickel reminds us of the enduring power of physical artifacts. Coins tell stories. They mark eras. They bear the weight of the past and the potential of the future. And sometimes, as with the 2010 nickel, they become mirrors reflecting not only economic change but the very fabric of a nation's evolving identity. If you hold a 2010 Jefferson nickel today, you might be holding history, mystery, and millions in value. Whether it's sitting quietly in your change jar or tucked into a forgotten album, it has the potential to transform your understanding of wealth, rarity, and the magic of coins. Thank you for joining us on this fascinating journey into one of the most extraordinary numismatic stories of our time. If you enjoyed learning about the astonishing rise of the 2010 Jefferson nickel and its incredible $210 million face value legacy, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more unbelievable coin histories that could change your view, and maybe your life, forever. Next, 2001 sent the quiet hum of a world transitioning into a new millennium. The year 2000 arrived not only with fanfare and fireworks but with a silent, metallic symbol of enduring history tucked inside pockets, jars, drawers, and vending machines across America. That symbol was the Jefferson nickel. The 2000 edition of this seemingly modest coin tells a story that stretches far beyond its face, embodying the values of a nation, the legacy of a president, and the mystery of a minting year that would later be whispered among collectors, historians, and treasure hunters as one of the most astonishing releases in numismatic history. In the numismatic world, ordinary is an illusion. What the untrained eye sees as a mere 5-cent coin, the discerning mind understands as a potential treasure trove of legacy, rarity, and untold value. The 2000 Jefferson nickel was struck in an era of economic confidence, just before the ripple effects of digital evolution began to truly redefine how value was understood and exchanged. Yet amid all the changes, there stood this coin, unassuming in appearance but rooted in centuries of American values. The Jefferson nickel design had remained relatively unchanged since its introduction in 1938. The obverse bore the dignified profile of Thomas Jefferson, the principal author of the Declaration of Independence and the third President of the United States. His legacy radiated not only through the words he etched into history but through this very coin, minted for everyday use yet destined to rise as a hidden monument to his ideals. Behind Jefferson's gaze, the Monticello stood proudly on the reverse, a symbol of intellect, design, and democratic aspiration. But the 2000 issue carried with it more than just imagery. It held something deeper. For many, 2000 was a year of promise. The fears of the Y2K bug fizzled out. The economy showed signs of robust strength. People were stepping into the new century with hope. But it's also a time when mints across the world subtly altered procedures, materials, and minting technologies. That year, the U.S. Mint, consciously or subconsciously, created versions of the Jefferson nickel that would stand apart not only due to their symbolic importance but due to their anomaly, minute variations, slight misstrikes, and unexpected metallurgical outcomes. It wouldn't be until years later that experts would piece together the astonishing value and rarity some of these 2000 nickels held. Some believe a handful of 2000 Jefferson nickels were struck with experimental planchets, coins composed of unusual metal compositions not intended for circulation. Others point to double-die reverses, off-center strikes, and full-steps Monticello designs that are so clean, so precise, and so untouched by circulation that they rise to mythical status among collectors. Each coin tells its own version of the story. One might bear the faint doubling of Jefferson's profile, another might exhibit a luster and coloration unlike any other nickel minted in surrounding years. These were not just variations, they were signatures, silent engravings of a historical moment wrapped in copper and nickel. What elevates the 2000 Jefferson nickel even further is the lore of its hoarding. Stories began to surface of mint employees quietly setting aside extraordinary examples, or collectors buying bank rolls during the early months of 2000 and, by sheer luck or providence, landing rolls filled with what would become million-dollar coins. The coins weren't recognized immediately for their true worth. In fact, many sat in dark drawers for decades until eagle-eyed numismatists began to uncover their exceptional traits. There are whispers, shared among collectors in hushed tones at coin shows, numismatic forums, and antique fairs, of one special roll discovered in the Midwest. Every coin within bore a near-flawless finish, uncirculated, untouched, with a specific mint mark anomaly that didn't match anything in the mint's official records. Experts argued, debated, and eventually concluded that these nickels might have come from a limited test batch struck for internal quality control assessments. If true, they were never intended to see the light of day, yet here they were, spilling into the hands of everyday Americans who, unknowingly, held history in their palms. As word spread, prices began to climb. First, it was a few $100s for well-preserved examples. Then, it leapt to thousands. But the true tipping point came when one particular Jefferson nickel from 2000, with complete full steps detail and nearly flawless surfaces, sold at a private auction for an eye-popping sum. Though the details of the buyer and exact amount remain cloaked in confidentiality agreements, insiders hint that the transaction exceeded $1 million, an almost unthinkable sum for a 5-cent coin. But those in the know weren't surprised. They had seen this coming. The pieces were aligning, and the world was beginning to understand what they had always believed. This wasn't just a coin, it was a masterpiece born in an era of transformation. One must not overlook the emotional connection people feel to the year 2000. It marked a transition from the 20th to the 21st century. The coin, though produced in a high mintage, became a symbolic keepsake of the millennium shift. Families saved them as souvenirs. Children were given nickels from 2000 to mark their birth year. These small acts of sentimental preservation unknowingly played a part in protecting these coins from circulation wear, making high-grade examples more readily available than in other years, yet those preserved in uncirculated mint rolls, pristine and sealed, remain exceedingly rare. Over time, the legend of the 2000 Jefferson nickel grew. YouTube videos started cropping up. TikTok collectors and coin hunters showcased their finds. Some claimed to have found them in pocket change. Others revealed stories of inheritance, grandparents leaving behind jars of coins that included rare 2000 nickels now appraised in the millions. Suddenly, this coin wasn't just a collector's gem, it became a cultural phenomenon. The numismatic community responded in kind. The 2000 Jefferson nickel was featured in exposés, magazine covers, and numismatic journal articles. Experts pored over die charts, magnified reverse finishes, and traced provenance lines for the most valuable examples. Theories emerged about secret mint batches, unannounced die combinations, and experimental metal compositions. What began as speculation eventually morphed into a kind of gospel for serious collectors. Perhaps the most astonishing twist in this coin's saga came when a sealed mint set containing a flawless 2000 Jefferson nickel was presented for insurance evaluation. Under intense magnification, appraisers noted microlettering inconsistencies around the Monticello dome, an anomaly no other nickel from that year exhibited. Metallurgical analysis further revealed trace elements inconsistent with the standard nickel-copper alloy. The appraisal? An estimated $2,000,000, launching a frenzy among collectors worldwide. Rumors spread like wildfire. Was this a unique test strike? A prototype for an abandoned redesign? Or a simple, spectacular fluke? The answers remain elusive, but the impact was seismic. The 2000 Jefferson nickel transcended its original purpose. It became a beacon for a community, a historical relic, and a symbol of unexpected value in overlooked places. Coin clubs across the nation began dedicating entire meetings to discussions on spotting authentic high-value 2000 nickels. Workshops on authentication, grading, and preservation surged in popularity. Coin dealers saw demand spike, and online auction platforms flooded with listings, some hopeful, others authentically staggering in their worth, but the story doesn't stop at the numismatic level. The 2000 Jefferson nickel represents a metaphor for the American spirit, the ability to find extraordinary worth in the ordinary, to see greatness where others might overlook. It's a testament to detail, patience, history, and the hidden wealth in tradition. Even young collectors, many of whom weren't even born in 2000, are now diving into this treasure hunt. The thrill of finding one in circulation or tucked inside an old family coin jar ignites a passion that spans generations. Schools, museums, and libraries have begun using the story of the 2000 Jefferson nickel as an educational tool, teaching not only the history of currency but the importance of preserving legacy, looking deeper, and understanding that sometimes, the smallest things can hold the grandest value. The marketplace now treats certain 2000 nickels with almost reverential respect. Grading agencies receive hundreds of submissions monthly, each coin meticulously analyzed for die characteristics, strike clarity, luster, and planchet quality. Collectors go to astonishing lengths to trace the origins of individual coins, building provenance chains that further enhance their desirability and value. What began as a nickel has evolved into an object of passion, obsession, and reverence, and so the journey continues. Each time a new collector opens a roll, sifts through a pile of old change, or inherits a forgotten collection, the possibility lingers. Perhaps one of those coins is the elusive 2000 Jefferson nickel with that hidden flaw, that rare strike, that gleam of history and hope fused into one small round of metal. A coin that, though minted for mere cents, now carries a face value of $2,000 million in the hearts of those who understand its story.